One of the most common questions that we get at Doman International from parents of kids with special needs is, how can I begin to address my child's speech delays? How can I get my child talking for the first time? How can I get my child talking more? And this is understandably a very big concern for parents out there, because if you see that your child is having difficulty with speaking and communicating, parents know that this is going to be a major concern developmentally for the child moving forward. Now, one of the big problems, and one of the reasons why there are so few treatments and therapies that give good results in speech development, is that there's a great lack of understanding amongst professionals about how to actually go about treating speech delay. And so I want to get into what are the causes of speech problems and how do we go about trying to treat those problems at Doman International. Well, so let's get into it, because there are as many as 7 different reasons why kids with special needs have speech problems. And, I always like to start out by saying to parents that when we speak, we are using 8 to 12 different areas of our brain, often in unison, to produce speech. And that's why it's one of the most affected areas of development for kids with neurodevelopmental conditions. Because if even just one of those 8 to 12 areas is affected, has not developed normally, well, that's going to result in some kind of speech problem. So let's get into it. Why do kids with special needs often have speech problems? Well, the first reason is some children have issues with their sensory development. They don't see as well as other children. They don't hear as well as other kids. They don't feel as well as other kids. And this can greatly interrupt speech development. Because, for example, if a child is not hearing normally, right? If they're not able to hear the sounds of human speech normally, well, if they're not hearing it, they're not going to be able to produce speech normally. And so that's why, as part of the Doman Method, auditory stimulation is essential to getting a child hearing better and normally. Also, even visual and tactile issues can be very problematic for kids with speech development. Very often this surprises parents. Why is vision so important? Well, for a child who is developing normally, right, that toddler, right, average toddlers watch the movements of the mouths of their parents and other adults in their environment to learn correct mouth and lip movements to produce speech. Children just do this innately. It's kind of built into their development. And so they learn visually how to move your lips and mouth properly to speak. Many kids with special needs do not know intuitively to do this. And so improving a child with special needs, their ability to see, and also their tactile awareness around and inside of their mouth are important parts of the Doman Method. And so addressing these underlying sensory issues are essential. The next thing that can often get in the way of speech development are issues with comprehension or understanding of language. And that's why with the Doman Method, and it's what the Doman Method really is most famous for, we focus very much on cognitive development. That's why the Doman Method has early reading programs, math, programs to teach the child information about the world. And we have created these Doman Method programs so that they are designed to be as effective as possible for kids with special needs. We do short teaching sessions, but we create special materials that are designed perfectly for kids with sensory issues or attention difficulties, right? So that they can learn as quickly and as effectively as possible. The next thing that can get in the way of a child's speech development are issues with respiration and breathing. And I would say this is probably the most overlooked area of problems for kids with special needs. Respiration or breathing is very, very important for producing speech. If you think about it for a second, as I'm talking, between each of my sentences, I'm inhaling And then as I speak my sentences aloud, I'm gradually exhaling my breath out. Now, you and I do this effortlessly and without even thinking about it, right? When have you thought about your breathing when you're talking? Except, for example, if you're trying to talk while running or doing intense exercise, right? Well, imagine if you weren't able to control your breathing. That would be very problematic if I wasn't able to control my ability to breathe in and then exhale gradually as I'm speaking. And so for many children, this inability to control their breath, right? It's not just, sometimes parents will say, oh, my child can breathe just fine. It's not just about the ability to breathe. It's the ability to control your breath, which is so important. And many children lack that. And so that's why in the Doman Method, we have a Doman Method oxygenation program, a specialized program only used in the Doman Method to improve breathing, and not just improve breathing, but improve oxygen delivery to the brain. When breathing is better, we can deliver more oxygen to the brain, and oxygen is the food of the human brain and essential for brain development. Well, another area that often gets in the way of kids with special needs is organization. And that's why the Doman Method includes various programs for improving neurological organization. Organization essentially is the ability to speak what you're thinking, right? And for many kids, they might be highly intelligent, but they're not able to organize themselves to deliver speech. And so many of our programs that we've used for decades are focused on neurological organization. And last but not least, gut and physiology are very, very important for speech development. For many kids, issues with digestion, sleep, health, air quality, food intolerances, these important factors can greatly affect a child with special needs in their development. And that's why at Doman International, we use a very specialized nutrition program, and every child on our program gets a specific supplementation program based on their needs to help address those underlying physiological and gut issues. Now, I think when a lot of parents hear this, they think, wow, this is a lot of stuff. They might even feel a little overwhelmed. But keep in mind, as I said, we need 8 to 12 different areas of our brain to work together to produce speech. And that's why the Doman Method is an integrative program. It's why we focus on what are the best possible treatments to address these different underlying issues. Because if we can address these underlying root cause issues, the symptoms of the neurodevelopmental issue, like speech delay, can begin to be resolved. And we can start to see that child communicate and speak for the first time. And that's why the Doman Method, in terms of results for speech development, we're very proud of our results in speech development. For anyone who wants to read our results, they can go to our website, domaninternational.org, and see the kinds of milestone wins that we achieve with our children. And it's another great reason for parents with kids with special needs to attend the online Doman Method course, where we begin to teach parents how to use the Doman Method at home with their child.